Bless the Lord, O my soul, and all that is within me, bless his holy name.
Thanks for tuning in to Armor of God again, and thanks for taking a little bit of your time to be here with us, so I hope y'all are going to learn so much from this compilation as well. Now recently I've covered the era of peace, the chastisement, and the earth purged by fire, the Antichrist, and the end times quite a lot. So for this one, the clips will be focusing a little bit on the fallen angels. Back in the days, the early days of this channel, it's what I used to release, but since we've covered so much back then, I don't really cover them anymore these days. But from time to time, I still put together a compilation for the new people here, so I hope for the old and new, both are going to learn quite a lot from this one. And here's the table of content for your reference, and without wasting any more time, let's start with the first one on the list.
This is a real person. I say person meaning somebody that has a will and a force, but he's a spirit, pure spirit, so much more powerful than man. And Lucifer was the most brilliant and beautiful of all the angels before he fell. So he's someone to contend. We can't beat him in a fight. It's only God that can beat him. So your relationship with God is going to be your strength. So that makes me very sad to hear that people are saying they don't believe in God, because that's the one who can help them against these very evil forces. Yeah. So we've got, Hollywood's always been under the control of Lucifer. The world is under the control of the devil. I mean, that was out of God's mouth. So it shouldn't surprise us that places that have particular power with messaging, with music, which goes right to the heart. Music bypasses the brain, goes straight into the heart. Good and bad. That would be, something that he would want to control. By colluding with the devil, you're directly working against God. And so if you do that your whole life, at the end of your life, why would you think you're going to heaven? You're going to go where you've been your whole life. And in that way, he kind of does have them in a snare, because at the end of life, if they've been serving the devil their whole life, that's where they're going. They're going to hell. And that way he does kind of snare them. Does he own their soul? No, but now he gets to tormented for eternity. Even worse. So people have to realize, and the funny thing about this country is everybody wants the big payout. We're all after money, and we're after the big home and the fancy cars. And the Gospels continually tell us that's the hard road that's not leading to heaven. So like we wish for the things that are actually going to complicate our lives and potentially lose our eternal place in heaven.
The next clip is a clip of Father Carlos Martins, and before I share the clip, in the previous video I've shared a little bit of my interview with the retired exorcist, Father Francis Tiso, and in that clip, Father Tiso said sometimes the exorcism took 4, 5 to 6 hours. And upon listening to that, try to relate to what Father Martins said here in this clip.
You're using prayer in order to weaken his hold, to get him to surrender information, and then ultimately to cast him out. So in the course of his receiving that punishment, one of the things he's going to try to do is, unbeknownst to you, he's going to summon another demon and have that demon take his place. Now you're fighting a brand new demon, one who's fresh. So now you're wasting your energy, so to speak, because you can't take advantage of the weakness in the demon that has just switched out. How you become aware of that typically, you have to consider that every demon has a personality, just like humans do. They reveal themselves in the way that they animate this particular body. So there'll be contortion within the muscles in a particular way. And so that's your clue. That's the biggest clue. Okay, there's a change here. This is a new demon. He may speak differently, and he's going to try to sound and act like the first demon so that you won't know that there's been a switch. It's to their advantage. But when you perceive it, then you want to say, no, I didn't give permission for that first demon to leave. God Almighty, I ask that you bring that first demon, and you typically name him if you know his name, bring him back now and get rid of this second demon. And then you can continue where it leaves off. It's important as an exorcist that you only allow a demon to leave when you want that to happen. By leave, what I mean is leave the sphere of the attention, because then he's out of the immediate strike range of your prayers.
I'll be having another session on Zoom with Father Joseph Iannuzzi this month, and this time all 10 questions I have prepared for him, going to focus largely on the saints. But for now, for this video, let me share this clip of him here.
Mary and the saints, the Son, the Holy Spirit are everywhere. Can the Virgin Mary and the saints answer people praying to them at the same time? Of course. Remember, Mary and God bilocate. And this bilocate is not limited to two places, which is implied by the word bi. It's multi-located. They can multi-locate. So Jesus can be, in fact, Jesus is everywhere on earth. Think about it. There are different modalities of God's presence. He's present by sacramental grace in the sacraments. He's present by natural grace in all of creation, by keeping the molecules and the atomical structure of all things together. Otherwise, it would just fall apart. So that's called natural grace in theology. That keeps the planets in their system, in their belts. That keeps the waters confined to not taking over the earth. That limits everything. This is natural grace. So God's present there. He's present in the sun. He's present in the grass. He's present in all things, but in different modalities. He's most present in us. He's present in the Eucharist as well, in his divinity. That is God. But he's most present in us when we receive him and when we act with Christ in us.
How often do we see exorcisms depicted in movies, such as the exorcism of Emily Rose and even Russell Crowe's The Pope's Exorcist? These exorcists in the movies would go to the victim's house in the middle of the night and perform the rite of exorcisms. Well, why don't we listen to this instead?
Here's another thing. When I go and do an exorcism, I don't go to somebody's house at midnight and during a rainstorm to do the exorcism. Nobody does that. When the sun is out, you do it in the church where I would have the Blessed Sacrament present. I would have other people with me, a team, and it's structured. Going into somebody's home that you've never been in the middle of the night during a thunderstorm, that's absurd. But that's the way they depicted it. Well, the devil never plays. He's never playing. Like you can think you're putting your mouth in the lion, and the lion thinks it's part of a trick. That lion never thinks it's a trick. He takes everything he can. So you don't play games. Another example is the Ouija board. So people would think, oh, it's just a game. What's the harm? And they also have what I say is curiosity is not a virtue. A curiosity about the demonic can get you in big trouble.
And because we have covered quite a lot so far in this video about exorcisms and the demons specifically, please allow me to share this clip of Father Chad Ripperger too. There's a link to the original and full video in the description box below if you'd like to listen to the whole thing, by the way.
People have this misconception, if you're possessed, you wouldn't be able to receive communion. That's just nonsense. Because certain demons can tolerate some things and not others. They don't like them, they have an aversion to them, but they can tolerate them. So one demon I know of, you can give the woman the Eucharist. You might react a little bit. You give her the precious blood, and that guy just craters. Or other demons, they can tolerate the Eucharist. They can even tolerate the person going to confession. But the minute you throw a little bit of holy water on them, it's going bananas. Another one is exorcised bells. What most people don't realize is, the bells that they have in churches? Historically, those bells were actually exorcised so that every time the bell was rung, it would resound into the area and literally drive the demons out of the area. That's what they were for. So, I have this one demon, I call it manifestations on demand. Because all you have to do is, even if the woman doesn't even see you have the bell, you just have to ring a bell that's been exorcised. Boom, this guy immediately, out he comes, right? She calls it Jack in the Box. The point is that they have some demons have tolerations to some things and some to others. And one of the things you have to do as an exorcist is find out where their weakness is in relationship to very specific sacred things, and then you just make them deal with it all the time, so that it weakens them. Okay. So all demons have an aversion to something sacred, but not all things that are sacred.
By the way, do you like this type of compilation? I've always tried to cover a variety of subjects in the compilations for this channel, and I think we've covered a lot of them, from being sexually assaulted by the demons, sleep paralysis, ingesting food cursed by the witches, etc. And these days, I usually tend to focus one priest per video, such as my recent Zoom session with Father Winston, the exorcist from the Philippines. And it was really a great session. It was 4 hours long and the longest interview I had so far. But if you'd like me to put together compilations like I used to in the early days of this channel, please let me know in the comments below.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of weird things, and A lot of them, I just can't speak publicly because the demon was being scandalous and belligerent, and it would be advertising for he would love nothing more than for me to share a lot of them. But I'm thinking there's one in particular, one moment when in this particular exorcism, so I had a very full team there, and it wasn't the largest room in the world, so it was kind of tight. And then what happened was the demon was making a foul smell in the room. It smells like feces is being held 2 inches from your nose. So the demons can do that. It is, at the end of the day, an illusion. There's no feces to be had, but they can manipulate the forces of nature to produce that effect in you. And also, I will say this about that experience of a smell, or even about the experience of when a demon makes the room, say, really cold or really hot. When the smell goes away, it goes away with the snap of a finger. It doesn't linger. It's instant on, instant off. So as we're experiencing this, on this particular day, there were 2 of us exorcists, and the other exorcist was pronouncing the prayers, and he used this foul odor in the prayer that he used in his address to the demon. So he heaped insults upon him, couched within a command, you cunning, foul mouth, evil, enemy of man, I command you to answer me in the name of Christ, you malodorous fiend. And then the demon just stopped, looked at him and said, me, malodorous? That smell was you. And then he gave a look on his face like he was offended just at the... It was something that none of us expected, and the entire room burst out laughing. And you couldn't help it. And it's one of those situations where, obviously, in an exorcism, everybody's under great stress. And in those moments when you're stressed out and something really funny happens, well, the more you try to suppress it, the more the laughter comes out. We had to take a 15-minute break just to compose ourselves and get serious again. And, it was part of the demonic tactic. It gave him a reprieve and allowed him a rest and a way to recoup himself.
For the next clip, let me share another one from Father Daniel Reehil. And in this clip, it's where he talks about the 2 ways the demons operate. Listen to this.
So there's 2 ways the demons operate. They operate in their natural capacity, and then they operate in a supernatural capacity. 99% of demonic activity in the world is in this natural capacity. What is that? That's temptation. So they tempt us. Even in sometimes even strange ways that, you'll just finish saying, you know what, it could be something as silly as, I'm not gonna have a drink for the month of August. And as soon as you tell this to the Lord, as some kind of a fast you're doing, the phone will ring and it'll be one of your best friends. Hey, let's go out to the bar tonight. Yeah. So that's what I mean by the natural. And by the way, the sin is the only thing that will put you in hell. So the supernatural power of demons, so that would be infestation. Infestation is when they kind of are ruling within a house or a place, and they can move things around the house. They can bang on the walls. They can give the odor of rotten eggs. They can drop the temperature in the room 30 degrees. All these sorts of things we would call an infestation. But they're not actually messing with the people. They're just putting fear in the people because of all the things they're doing in the house. Then there's obsession. Obsession is when they mess with somebody's mind and they attack their thoughts all day. And this can drive people crazy because all they hear are these voices screaming in their head all day long. Oppression is attacks to the body. So the person's body is physically attacked. Sometimes it manifests with a sickness that can't be diagnosed. Other times you can say right away, it's evil. I had a case where a gentleman lived alone in his own home, and he was waking up in the morning with bite marks all over his body. Well, he can't bite himself on the back, so we knew it wasn't him. Other times, the scratch marks, all sorts of strange things. And then possession is when the person gives their will over to the spirit and kind of gives into it, and then it can take control of their whole person.
One of the many things I'm thankful for, actually, is I was able to interview Father Vincent Lampert when he was still an exorcist. For those who do not know, he's no longer an active exorcist. He served as the designated exorcist for the Archdiocese of Indianapolis from 2005 until November 2024, when he stepped down from the role.
So I've worked with people who tell me that once the demon manifests in their body, they no longer have any recollection of what took place. Others have told me that once the manifestation begins, then they're aware of everything that's happening, but they're like a prisoner trapped in their own body, helpless to stop any of it. The church would say that, just as much as there is a hierarchy in the angelic world, there is a hierarchy in the demonic world. So they vary in strength and malice, maybe according to the height from which they fell. Certainly, the highest ranking of the angels that fell was Lucifer himself, who became the devil or Satan, and then all of the other angels would kind of fall below him. But there is a hierarchy in the demonic world, and it really is a matter of trying to understand what ranking of demon that I may be dealing with. And it is true that oftentimes it isn't a question of one demon, but it could be multiple demons kind of clustered together with a demon of a higher ranking that's kind of controlling the possession itself. Yeah, there is no fraternity or collegiality amongst demons. They hate themselves just as much as they hate us, but they are united in their hatred of humanity. What's the old line, the enemy of my enemy is my friend? So demons, again, there's no fraternity there, if you will, but they are united, and oftentimes the weakest demons are the first to go. But they're even, kind of conflicted because they want to leave, but maybe the higher ranking demon is trying to force them to stay, which leads to even greater torment for them. So it is a great, crazy, chaotic, dysfunctional world with the demons. Usually weaker demons don't really have a proper name. They might say that there's the demon of anger or gluttony or lust. Think of any of the deadly sins. The ones of a higher ranking seem to have a proper name. So like I mentioned earlier, casting out the demon Leviathan, in that person, they were possessed by 7 demons, and they were kind of, working together. In the gospel accounts, when demons speak to Jesus, they always go and speak in the singular to the plural, such as, I know who you are, the Holy One of God. Have you come against us before the present time? So again, these weakest demons, they're always the first to go. The ones of a higher ranking, like Leviathan, told me that it had a right to possess this person because the person had done something that gave the demon authority to possess them. But the human person has the capacity to grow in holiness and virtue. We can say, well, that was a really dumb thing to do, and then we can repent and want to change. Demons may try to convince us that, no, it's one and done, but that's certainly not the case. So anyone can ask for help in having demons cast out. It's important to note that just because somebody is possessed doesn't mean that they're manifesting 24 hours a day. To be possessed means that somehow the person, either directly or indirectly, gave authority to a demon to attach itself to their life. They enter into them, if you will, and then something may trigger that demonic connection that causes a manifestation. The people who are possessed can go through the normal aspects of life. They can go to work and school and do these types of things, but then something will trigger the manifestation. And because they're not manifesting all the time, then the person can ask for help from the church. Exorcisms cannot be performed on anyone against their will. The person has to ask for the help of the church. And as a priest, I don't go around trying to drum up business and telling people, hey, you're possessed, you need an exorcism. No, it's the people who reach out to me who believe that that's the case. And then I have a very strict protocol that I will follow to make the determination whether or not their situation is demonic in nature, is it spiritual, is it physical due to a medical condition, or is it mental due to some type of, psychotic whatever that may be going on in the person.
Now, there are not many clips left in this compilation, but I'd like to share another clip of Father Chad Ripperger again.
Morphing, this is where the person changes shape. We're not talking about just making a face. The person's facial structure actually changes. So, for example, one of the demons I've dealt with so much is Beelzebub. I've had him in 3 cases, dealt with him a long time in one case, to where as soon as he shows up, I know who I'm looking at. It's just like recognizing someone else on the street. It's because Immediately the jaw extends out about 1 inch to 2 inches on each side, the head narrows, the eyes go together, and they immediately turn bloodshot all within a couple of seconds. And so, well, there you are again. Okay. So the point being is that they'll do things, that changing of shape is actually the most common form of manifestation that you're going to see as an exorcist. People will say things like, well, doesn't that scare you? No, not really. At this point, it's just part of the landscape. You just realize that's what demons can do, and all you're interested in is learning, figuring out, what can I learn from this in order to get this guy out? That's what you're really after.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this sounds like bilocation. Just like what Father Iannuzzi explained earlier, in that clip of him I shared with you earlier in this video. Listen to this for a bit.
Because more than one demon can possess a person at a time. And also, the same demon can possess a number of different people at the same time. I've actually had that, where one demon was possessing 2 different people I was working with at the same time. They're during sessions when they're taking just the most brutal beating, they're more worried about the humiliation and the ridicule they're going to take in hell once they get booted out than the severity of the brutality of what they're going through. Okay. Kind of interesting, because you start seeing how why human beings function the way they do. Okay.
We have finally come to the last clip that I want to share with you in this compilation, and it's going to be a clip of Father Joseph Iannuzzi.
Now, that which distinguishes the late Roman Empire from its future revival under a New World Order is its having for the first time established dominion upon the entire earth, even to its ends. How? Through technology. Through technology. Technology in itself is not evil, but Satan will avail himself of it to try to convince the masses of a great diabolical lie that has been preserved for these end times, and that will emerge soon. And that lie is that God did not create us, but other beings did from other worldly areas. Now, the original word in Greek for mark, John speaks of a mark, is charagma, which does not mean mark at all, but more forcefully, a strike that leaves an impression, like a brand in a cow, for example. It's a brand within the flesh. And this Luciferian mark that John speaks of may be impressed within the flesh of the right hand or forehead as a public declaration, and will demand of those civilians who receive it customary public acts of worship. Acts of public worship will be directed toward an image that will be erected in honor of the one world conglomerate beast. St. John talks about this. And according to St. John, Satan will empower this image to come to life, as it were. Now, it won't have a literal life like we do, a conscience, a rationality, a volition, no. But aided by technology, artificial intelligence, for example, this is very plausible, not without the diabolical mechanizations, of course, in addition to technology. But in these short but dark days ahead, there will be little wiggle room for pusillanimous individuals who expect to receive this Luciferian mark solely to obtain material goods, to survive. Why? The one who receives the mark, St. John reveals, this mark of the beast, he calls it, have consented to idolatry. Idolatry and henceforth are targeted by God's angels for the day of the Lord, the day of wrath that will manifest itself quickly and with great violence. The book of Revelation reveals their fate. Chapter 16, verse 2. The first angel went and poured out his bowl on the earth. Festering and ugly sores broke out on those who had the mark of the beast or worshipped his image. Unquote. Now, those who have refused this mark, whatever it is, will be put to the test, but divine assistance will give them strength. This anti-Christian world government will force them, if they wish to worship openly, into hiding, where they will pray and receive the sacraments from bishops, priests, clandestinely, or in cenacles. And God's angels will seal them on the forehead to protect them from his wrath. This is found in Revelation, chapter 7, verse 4 and 14, verse 1. A spiritual, divine seal will be imprinted on their foreheads. The foreheads of those that refuse the mark of the beast, to guard them and equip them to endure the 7 trumpets. Now, this last kingdom of which I'm addressing will espouse a communist ideology to further Satan's plan to destroy God's church and stifle all promptings of the Holy Spirit in the souls of his children. This last kingdom will assuage humanity's desire for religion by delivering to the masses as opium an idol, a god, false god that appeals to all religions. By the working of diabolical wonders aided by technology, this final kingdom will mesmerize the masses and win over many. Yves St. John says, if it were possible, even the elect would be deceived. We will know that this kingdom is of Satan. Why? Because of its characteristics, which are, number one, removing the perpetual sacrifice of which Daniel and John spoke. The Eucharist will be halted, at least in public, for several years. There's a period of 7 years mentioned in the book of Revelation as a period of tribulation, and the end part of it, the last 3.5 years, is the worst. And that's when the Eucharist will be abolished, and the public exercise of the papacy will be suppressed. The papacy will always exist, even underground, as it has at the time of the catacombs when the Christians were being martyred, but it won't be permitted in public. Satan wants all authority, and he will stop at nothing until he gets it. But God has foreseen that even though Satan will have his hour, God will have his day. There can be no resurrection without a crucifixion. There can be no Easter without a Good Friday. There can be no reign of God's will on earth without Satan having his will reign on earth. And we are living in those times. And the third characteristic of this evil conglomerate kingdom is it will replace with a false substitute religion this man of iniquity of which St. Paul speaks of in his second letter to the Thessalonians, the abomination of desolation, the man of lawlessness. He, hestekota, is a third person singular word in Greek, meaning he will sit himself. This is a male individual, often referred to as the Antichrist by the church fathers, will sit himself in the throne of God and declare himself God. Now, this is not the throne of the Vatican, no. This is a counterfeit church. It will most likely be a prominent parliament place, and he will proclaim himself God. This tyrannical rule imposed by this last kingdom will deny the resurrection and the divinity of Jesus Christ. So there are 5 characteristics right there. The removal of the Eucharist, of the public exercise of the papacy, even though the papacy will continue to exist. God will never leave his flock untended, but it will be under persecution. There will be this false, iniquitous, anti-Christian human male that will declare himself God. There will be who will deny the resurrection and the divinity of Christ. And the sixth characteristic, this kingdom and its anti-Christian male individual leader will change the church's sacred tradition. He won't change the church, no, but he will create a counterfeit black church. And this black counterfeit church, meaning dark, evil, sinister, won't have anything to do with the Catholic Church because he will suppress the Catholic Church.
That will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here again, and hopefully all of you have learned a lot from this video. Remember, if there's any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. Anyway, if you like what we do and you'd like to support us, I left a link to our PayPal donation in the description box below and from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for your continuous support, contributions, and prayers. And until the next one, thanks again for watching and may God bless you.
If one's fear is too much, if one shows an excessive fear of the devil, then that in and of itself puts one in a relationship with him.
Tsunami! Man, I don't know who they think I am. I make minimum wage over here, man. I ain't dying for this. Ah!